This black girl halted the court proceedings and informed the judge that she was hungry. Her actions shocked everyone present. As Nia stepped in front of the judge, the tension in the courtroom was palpable. With a grave expression on his face, Judge Callisto sat behind the imposing oak desk. He was known for his strict adherence to the law, regardless of the circumstances surrounding the individuals appearing before him. Nia, a single mother, was in court due to a $200 parking fine that she was struggling to pay. She attempted to justify her inability to cover the hefty charge. As she stood nervously in front of the judge, the murmurs from the audience distracted him. They were trying to guess the outcome of the case. "Order in the court," he shouted, banging his gavel. The courtroom fell silent, only to be interrupted by a high-pitched voice asking for hamburgers. The tiny voice belonged to Nia's 6-year-old daughter, Maya. The courtroom gasped in response. Normally, everyone would have laughed at Maya's innocent comment, but Judge Callisto's court was notorious for its severity. This kind of immature outburst was unprecedented and, frankly, unacceptable. Nia's cheeks flushed crimson with embarrassment. Had her daughter just ruined their chances of escaping this predicament? Nia cast a worried glance at Maya, who merely stood beside her mother with wide, innocent eyes. Judge Callisto, though initially shocked, displayed no sign of anger. His eyebrows raised in surprise, but his expression remained calm. Nia quickly bowed down to Maya, whispering that they were not permitted to interrupt the judge. She had hoped Maya's presence would soften the judge's demeanor, but now she feared that this outburst would infuriate him even more. Feeling ashamed, especially after realizing they might be seen as irresponsible because of Maya's interruption, Nia continued to stand anxiously before the judge. Judge Callisto stole a sidelong glance at the restless child beside her mother. "Did you say hamburgers, young lady?" he asked Maya, his voice unexpectedly gentle. The judge's inquiry deviated from the harsh tone he usually employed in court. With everyone watching attentively, Nia held her breath, praying they wouldn't regret this moment. However, Maya chose not to respond to the judge's question. Instead, her large brown eyes were transfixed on a painting of a somber-looking man in a wig hanging on the wall. Nia's heart raced. Things were not going well. Contrary to Nia's expectations, Judge Callisto did not explode in anger. Instead, he shifted his gaze from Maya to Nia. For what felt like an eternity, the silence lingered, making Nia feel like a bug under a microscope. Eventually, the judge resumed speaking. "Is there anything you'd like to tell me, young lady?" he asked Maya. Before Nia could intervene, Maya stepped toward the judge's bench, nodded, and exclaimed that her stomach was growling loudly because she hadn't had breakfast. Nia was mortified. Here was her daughter, requesting food while she was trying to explain a critical issue before a stern judge. The morning rush had been chaotic, and although Nia knew they should have stopped for breakfast, her focus had been on getting Maya ready and managing her own responsibilities. Now the judge might see them as even more irresponsible. Despite her daughter's candor, which was sweet and endearing, Nia began to apologize, but the judge interrupted her with a gentle wave. He remarked that, especially when someone was hungry, court could be quite a long and dull place. "Why don't you come up here and tell me more about these hamburgers?" he suggested. Everyone was taken aback by the judge's unexpected inquiry, and even Judge Callisto seemed a bit uncertain after mentioning hamburgers. Maya looked back at Nia for permission, and despite her uncertainty, Nia simply nodded. Maya eagerly strode over to the imposing judge's desk, grinning as she climbed up to the small platform before him. Judge Callisto settled back in his chair, watching her approach. This was not a typical occurrence in his courtroom. Everyone seemed to hold their breath, waiting to see how the judge would react. Would he be annoyed at being interrupted? Would he penalize Maya for her outburst? Nobody, not even Nia, could have anticipated the judge's unexpected response. Nia's life had long been a struggle between juggling work, childcare, and making ends meet as a single mother to her lively 6-year-old daughter, Maya. Every morning felt like a balancing act. Nia was running late that day trying to pick up Maya's medication before her bakery shift. After hastily preparing them, she dashed out of the house, hoping traffic wouldn't be a nightmare. Despite her hopes, every traffic light turned red, making their usually quick drive to the drugstore feel agonizingly long. By the time Nia arrived, she was already running late. Unfortunately, all parking spaces were occupied, and even though there was one next to the entrance designated for wheelchairs, Nia knew better than to park there. However, time was pressing. She quickly calculated in her head that it would only take a few minutes to grab the medicine, so she parked in the wheelchair space, assuming it would be a quick visit. As often happens with single mothers, her few minutes turned into 10, then 15. The line moved slowly, and by the time she got back to her car, worry set in. What if she had stayed too long? Her fears were confirmed when she noticed a vivid orange envelope under her windshield wiper, a $200 parking ticket. For Nia, already living on a tight budget, this was a crushing blow. $200 represented over half of her weekly grocery bill. How could she possibly afford it? She calculated and rationed everything: gas for the car, her daily coffee, wondering how she would make it work. She faced a tough decision: either pay the fine and miss a rent payment, or show up in court and plead her case. As intimidating as the courtroom environment was, Nia understood that the parking fee was too severe to ignore. So she took her chances, hoping that by explaining her situation to the judge, he might show some understanding. For days leading up to the court date, she studied parking laws and rehearsed her justification. The closer the day came, the more anxious she became. Would Judge Callisto even consider her reasoning? On the day of the hearing, Nia's anxiety peaked as she entered the courthouse, surrounded by high ceilings and stern-looking security officers. Her nervousness was compounded by tales of Judge Callisto's strict nature. When it came time for her to stand in front of him, she was trembling. With her voice quivering, she began to explain her situation, detailing how she juggled being a single mother while rushing to pick up her daughter's medication. Despite her efforts, Judge Callisto remained stoic. His severe expression conveyed little empathy, and as he scanned her case file, Nia's heart sank. She had prepared a heartfelt defense, but the judge seemed unmoved, focusing solely on the parking violation itself. Nia feared he might not only uphold the fine but increase it as a punishment for wasting the court's time. Just as she was losing hope, Maya suddenly broke the silence by asking for hamburgers. Nia hadn't taught her daughter about court proceedings, but she certainly hadn't anticipated such an outburst. Apologizing for the breakfast delay, Nia worried the judge would view her as both a careless driver and an inattentive mother. Yet the judge seemed to soften as he engaged Maya directly, inquiring about what type of work Nia did. Maya, emboldened by the conversation, answered wholeheartedly, explaining that her mother worked long hours making delicious pastries and occasionally took late shifts at a restaurant. As the court listened to Maya's account, the atmosphere shifted. No longer was Nia just a woman facing a parking violation. She was a single mother striving to care for her family under challenging circumstances. Maya's innocent comments and heartfelt anecdotes about her mother invoked sympathy from everyone present, including Judge Callisto. Finally, the judge surprised everyone by directly asking Maya what he thought Nia's punishment should be. Gasps filled the courtroom as the audience struggled to process this unprecedented moment. At first, Nia was bewildered, wondering if the judge genuinely thought a 6-year-old would have an opinion. However, Maya simply glanced at the judge and declared that he should make the decision, prompting laughter from the crowd, a rare occurrence in Judge Callisto's courtroom. The smile that crept onto the judge's face hinted at a softened demeanor. After a brief pause, he called for a break. When the bailiff returned with a brown paper bag, Judge Callisto handed it to Maya, explaining that they needed to take care of her rumbling stomach before resuming court. Inside the bag were juice boxes and sandwiches. Maya's eyes lit up, and Nia was overwhelmed with gratitude. This small gesture overshadowed the tense circumstances they had faced. When the court resumed, Judge Callisto reviewed Nia's case with renewed care. Her clean driving record and the fact that this was her only parking ticket in 9 years caused the judge to reconsider her situation. In an astonishing turn of events, he dismissed the ticket entirely. Applause erupted in the courtroom, flooding Nia with relief as if a heavy weight had been lifted from her shoulders. But the judge was not finished. He presented Nia with a list of local resources available for single mothers, including childcare support and career training programs, many of which offered free online courses. Nia's heart brimmed with gratitude. The dismissed ticket seemed inconsequential now. As she struggled to express her appreciation, Judge Callisto reassured her that his act was one of justice with a touch of charity. No thanks were necessary. News of Judge Callisto's kindness spread across social media and local news outlets. People were taken aback by the judge's genuine concern for Nia's circumstances. In addition to the dismissal of the ticket, the resources he provided rekindled Nia's hope for a more secure future. With the judge's help, she enrolled in the online degree program and accessed childcare support, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. Judge Callisto's encounter with Nia and Maya transformed his perspective as well. It served as a poignant reminder that while laws are essential, their ultimate purpose is to protect rather than punish. He began to see the law not as a rigid set of rules, but as a means to safeguard the most vulnerable members of society. This heartwarming tale exemplifies how compassion and empathy can emerge even within the austere walls of a courtroom. What has been your experience with judges and courts? Let me know in the comments section, and I'll see you in the next video.